There was a couple big things that happened during E3 last week that we wrote about, but we haven't gotten to really discuss. And one was Daredevil, which we knew in the past month that Charlie Cox from Boardwalk Empire was now playing Matt Murdock / Daredevil. But the other, I'd say, like big, who knows? I guess we'll find out if Elektra's in the sucker too. But the other big casting, as far as the villain goes, Kingpin has been cast, and it's Vincent D'Onofrio. Who I guess, I don't know if you were to say was Men in Black, I guess would be like his biggest movie hit.
Mm-hmm. Well, Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket is his iconic film.
Yeah. I feel like for kind of mainstream audiences, but even in Men in Black, isn't he? He's mostly in like prosthetic makeup too, and a lot of it.
He morphs into it. Yeah, as it goes on. But then, and then of course he had several years on Law and Order. Was it Criminal Intent? One of the Law and Orders.
It was one of those ones.
There were some crimes. There was some law and some order. So for both of you guys, Joshua, I'll start with you first. What do you think of Vincent D'Onofrio playing the Kingpin?
I think it's a great choice. He's got the physicality for us. He looks great bald, and he's got the acting chops. So I'm really interested to see where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, I concur with Dr. Yale.
Yes.
I think that I had tweeted a few weeks ago about after they announced Charlie Cox that about Kingpin and D'Onofrio was like the first guy I mentioned because
you called it
because I figure he is he's been a TV staple for I think it was like 10 years. He was on that show. It was a lot longer than I thought that he was doing that, and he is a legitimately good actor. He is a big guy.
Yeah.
And he is about probably as good a pick for Kingpin as you were going to be able to get. Because, I mean, the challenge with that is not only do you have to get an actor with some gravitas, but he has to physically be believable as that character.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a Kingpin who's going to be, built like, giant. Even the way Michael Clark Duncan was, where really big muscles, but kind of a gut, and Michael Clark Duncan put on weight to play Kingpin.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get that. I think he's just going to be a big guy and be much more of the evil businessman than the brawler. But we'll see. I mean, it'd be interesting.
So you don't think we'll see him throw Daredevil against the roof?
I think maybe we'll get something like that, but I have a feeling he'll be much more comfortable with the cane and the ascot.
Yeah, I wondered about that too because in the comics they're always like he looks heavy, like he's a heavy guy, but he's pure muscle. It's all just muscle.
Oh, come on!
Exactly, it's a very comic book conceit, but it worked. It worked for the
probably
comics.
Be built more like even the way they did Tom Hardy as Bane, where he wasn't defined, but he was a brawler. It looked like he looked like a juiced up bouncer.
I also think that, who knows, the way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has gone, like they've really, there's so much tech, right? It's like obviously first and foremost Stark, but then you've got AIM and, all this different stuff. So there's a lot of ways, if you wanted to have Kingpin just kind of be Vincent D'Onofrio, who's kind of heavy set but intimidating, but then have him throw down, who knows? Like they could say he's got some new special AIM tech, to fight him with.
No, I suppose you could go that angle if you really wanted to sell it. But I just think the idea of this dude being sort of unpredictably strong and dangerous physically without help is like more of sort of the street level tone they're going for with these.
Right.
Not that I've seen them or
right.
But I think also the fact that, D'Onofrio is probably about, 6'4", 6'5". I know that when they were casting for, I forget what movie it was, a Vince Vaughn movie, and they needed actors to play his brothers, they had to go and get guys that were all over 6'3". So it was Vince Vaughn, Vincent D'Onofrio, and I think Cole Hauser.
Right.
So you had to get all these huge guys. And I think with Charlie Cox being probably 5'6", he's not
I don't think he's that short.
Really? Okay. Well, he doesn't. He's not Affleck.
No.
So I think you'll see that sort of interesting sort of visual disparity between the two when they're in scenes together. But do you think Elektra casting? Do you think we'll get that soon?
That's the big question. I think Elektra and Bullseye. I think people are going to be curious about. Even though it's fun, it's too bad that the movie. One of the disappointments of the movie is that they took such a great story from the comic book and they forced too much in at once and they kind of ruined it in the process. And yet these are iconic parts of Daredevil lore, so I'd be surprised if we don't get some casting on Elektra and Bullseye, even if, who knows, like, what if they just show Elektra only in the context of maybe this time they do get the flashbacks of them going to college together or something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
we still have Foggy Nelson that they'll have to cast. And do we know, I guess Ben Urich might show up.
I think he will.
I mean, I think we've talked about maybe he could be sort of like the somewhat connective tissue or the everyman kind of.
Yeah, like the Clark Gregg.
Of
Marvel things. I think that'd be a great
Netflix
idea.
Of the Marvel Knight stuff,
Personally, I'm still holding out for Stiltman casting.
I would love Stiltman.
What was it? Purple Man, right?
Purple Man.
Purple Man, knowing what
the
we
owl.
know. When you think about Purple Man and his significance to Jessica Jones, he was a Daredevil villain, but then he was so important to Jessica Jones. So that actually would be interesting casting if they want to layer things in like that. And then I also think, look, once they, the fact that they're doing these TV shows and they're all set within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're all curious. Will we see Charlie Cox as Daredevil in Avengers 5 or something like that?
Fun, man.
One can only hope.
One can only hope.
I see. Why not? If it's success, you can bet he will be in the movies.
I mean, they have 13 episodes to tell this. You could have a number of these sort of touchstone Daredevil stories kind of truncated down, but you could make it work.
But I also think once I heard D'Onofrio was playing him, and D'Onofrio, a great actor who's also been a TV and a film actor, I'm like, I would almost bet before we see Daredevil in a Marvel movie, we see Kingpin.
Yeah.
Because and of course in the comics he's interesting because he's a major Daredevil and a major Spider-Man villain, but he's just this big player in Marvel. They can't use him in Spider-Man, but I just feel like have a scene in a Cap movie or something where Wilson Fisk is there. I almost feel like it's too good to resist doing.
Yeah, I do feel like if you're going to get that kind of actor and try to bridge your universes, if you're not going to get the Marvel movie actors to pop up maybe on your Netflix show, you could at least have it go the other way around and draw some attention to it. Do you think that, what sort of Daredevil storylines do you think we'll see pop up in the show?
I think that, they'll have to do, if not, I don't know how much time they'll spend on the origin as far as him as a kid, but I think that they will do the he's just starting out thing. And there almost is room for Stiltman if you do that, because it's like, maybe, the thing about Daredevil is he is a character who kind of started goofy and got darker and darker and darker, and now recently they, with Mark Waid, they veered back into the lighthearted stuff. But it's almost like you could kind of take the character on a truncated 13-episode arc of that. Like he's, fighting the likes of Stiltman, but Kingpin's kind of looming in the background, and then Kingpin and Bullseye can kind of rise up, as the series continues.
And they'll do like the Born Again kind of thing.
I don't know if they'll get the Born Again. I think Born Again is something you have to hold on to, especially because don't forget it's 13 episodes. It's the Netflix model, which means we're going to get 13 episodes in one day. I'll be home binge watching it. No one will be working at IGN.
That's right.
and then it's going to all lead into the Defenders series where they all team up. So I feel like Born Again is probably something that they should hold on to, and that because we don't know if after the Defenders they go back to Daredevil season 2. Or if we get the Daredevil movie, that's the thing.
Or maybe it was just a one and done. I mean, what do you think that Marvel would do? Use the Netflix model as just sort of launching different characters just for a one-off, or do you see them doing like multiple seasons for the same character?
I think it'll depend on the character, and I can just looking at the characters, Daredevil being the biggest. I'm like, Daredevil could logically lead into films. Jessica Jones, who might be like, I think Jessica Jones always sounded like a great TV show. Jessica Jones, maybe they do season 2 for her. Yeah. And then I'm like, what if they give a movie for, Luke Cage and Iron Fist together, like a lot of us want.
Right,
it's just crazy that we have these options. So.
Do you think Elektra is going to be a name actress, or will she be like an unknown?
I don't know.
Who do you even get? Like, who would be the sort of, even Jennifer Garner's casting at the time, she had Alias, but she didn't really match. She's not Greek. She didn't really match.
I'm going to throw out my who I think they should cast as Elektra, especially looking at Stephen DeKnight being the showrunner and knowing his history. I think it should be Katrina Law from Spartacus fame, who I think would be really good. And then you get into the thing of like, oh, well, now she's Nisa Al Ghul on Arrow. And are they like, well, we're not going to, even though she's not making a move on that, it's like, are they like, well, she's now...
Isn't Summer
Glau?
Summer Glau, isn't she in Arrow as well? As
Yes.
Did she, spoilers, but did she just... bite it in the...
Okay, so if you're still watching this, here's your spoiler alert for we've got for Arrow season finale. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
so
now she's free to be her. She's sort of the premier martial artist actress. A lot of fans think of.
There you go. So that's another cool choice as well. So I think it'll be interesting. You know, this show starts filming pretty soon, so I think we're going to start getting. You know, I bet you if not before Comic-Con, at Comic-Con, it's like here's your full cast.
Do you think that the fact that it is Marvel doing it and they do try to stay closer to what their comic book costumes look like? Are we going to really see? Will it be an even stricter interpretation of the Daredevil suit than the movie was? Because remember, the movie they made it leather and they tried to make it like multiple pieces and like a biker outfit.
I think it'll look, especially because the movie, gave people, left a bad taste in their mouth. So I think that they'll try to make it pretty damn comics accurate. Not that the movie was, it was recognizably Daredevil,
Yeah.
But I think they'll try to veer off into some other sort of direction with it. We'll see.